There's something strange about small towns. The silence, the empty roads, the way everyone seems to know each other. But no one talks about what really happened. These are the stories that never made the news, because no one believed them until now. Welcome to Whispers of the Unknown. Subscribe now, and don't watch this alone. Story 1. The Last Shift at Mayfield Diner. Mayfield, Kentucky. Population, 2,083. I was 17, working the night shift at the only diner in town, Mayfield Diner. The place hadn't changed since the 60s. Brown leather booths, sticky floors, a flickering neon sign that buzzed loud enough to give you a headache. It was open 24 hours, but after midnight, we barely got anyone. My manager, Rosie, always said, "Lock the door after 1 a.m. If they look like trouble, they can wait till morning." That night, it was just me and a cook named Joel, a quiet, older guy who smoked like a chimney and barely spoke unless he needed more eggs. Around 2:47 a.m., the bell above the door jingled. I froze. I had locked the door, I was sure of it. But now it was wide open, and someone had walked in. A man, about 6 feet tall, dressed in a gray trench coat soaked in rain. His face was pale, thin, and his eyes, they didn't blink. "Coffee," he said, sitting at the farthest booth, the one near the window that always fogged up, no matter the season. I nodded and grabbed a mug. Joel peeked out from the kitchen, frowned, then disappeared again. As I walked over to the man, I noticed something odd. His coat wasn't wet anymore, bone dry. I poured his coffee and he looked up. "Thanks, Sarah," he said. I didn't have a name tag. I never told him my name. I forced a smile. "Have we met?" "No," he replied, "but we will." I laughed nervously and walked away. Joel was standing by the grill, pale as a ghost. "You serve him?" "Yeah." "Why?" Joel leaned closer. "That booth's cursed. You know about the Mayfield 5? I shook my head. 5 people, all locals, all died in the same booth. Different nights, always alone. Always after 2:30 a.m. I thought he was messing with me, until I turned around, and the booth was empty. Coffee. Untouched. Still steaming. The seat. Dry. Like no one had ever sat there. I rushed to the door. Still locked. No sign of the man. No footsteps. No sound. Joel and I stared at each other, neither of us saying a word. The next morning I checked the security camera. The bell rang. The door opened. But no one came in. No one was there. Just the door. Unlocking itself. I quit that night. But sometimes, when I pass the diner after dark, I see that booth, lit up from the inside, and a pale man sipping coffee, staring through the window, right at me. Story 2. The Girl Behind the Fence. Weldon, North Carolina. Population, 1,370. It was the summer of 2003 when my family moved to Weldon, a town so small, if you blinked, you'd miss it. We rented a white 2-story house on a quiet road, right beside a large, overgrown field that used to be a schoolyard back in the 1950s. On the far end of the field stood a rusted metal fence, 6 feet high, twisted in places, covered in ivy. Beyond it was just trees, or so we thought. I was 9 years old the first time I saw her, a girl standing just beyond the fence. White dress, long black hair, barefoot. I waved. She didn't wave back. She just stared. Her eyes were too wide, her smile too still. I blinked, and she was gone. When I told my mom, she said, "You have an active imagination." When I told my dad, he laughed and said, "Maybe she's your guardian angel." But the next day, she was there again. Same dress, same spot, same stare. Only this time, she waved, not like a normal person. Her arm didn't bend. It just raised straight up, stiff, like a puppet on strings. I ran back inside. That night, I had a dream. I was standing in the field. The fence was gone. The girl was closer now, her face pale like paper, eyes black, mouth stitched shut. She pointed to the woods and whispered, "They never found me." I woke up screaming. My parents were freaked out. They called the local pastor to bless the house. For a week, nothing happened, until the neighbor came by. Mrs. Holloway, a woman in her 80s, leaned on her cane and squinted at our backyard. "You seen her yet?" My mom froze. "Seen who?" "The girl behind the fence." She said it so casually, like she was talking about the weather. "She's been there since I was a child." They said she wandered into the woods and never came back. Her mama searched for weeks, but there was a storm and the creek flooded. Folks said she probably drowned. I asked what her name was. "Caroline," she said. "Caroline Maddox." I never told her about my dream, but that name, Caroline, had been whispered to me in it. After that, I stopped going near the fence, but Caroline didn't stop. I'd see her outside at night, standing under the moonlight, motionless. Sometimes, closer than before. Then one morning, my mom screamed. There were muddy footprints on the porch, barefoot, small, like a child's. But they weren't leading to the door. They were leading away from it, from inside the house. We moved within the week. Years later, I came back to Weldon, just passing through. Curiosity, I guess. The house was still there, abandoned now. The field was overgrown, and the fence? Still standing. And through the ivy, I swear, I saw a small hand pressed against the metal, waiting. Story 3, The House That Skipped a Day. Elmswood, Indiana, population 3,912. They say time moves slow in small towns, but in Elmswood, it didn't just move slow. Sometimes it skipped entirely. It started with the Nichols family. In 2009, they moved into the old Langston Place on Birch Hollow Road, a 3-story Victorian house that hadn't been touched in decades. Paint peeled like skin. Floorboards cried with every step. Locals said it was cursed, but no one ever explained why. The Nichols didn't believe in that sort of thing. They were just excited to finally own a house. But then came October 17th. Mrs. Nichols was making breakfast when she noticed something odd. The TV wouldn't turn on. Her phone had no signal. The oven clock was blinking, not flashing 12:00 like when the power goes out, but blinking 0000. The entire day felt off. No birds outside, no mail, no sound. She checked the calendar. October 17th. The next morning, everything returned to normal. Phones worked, clocks ran fine, and birds chirped like nothing had happened. Except, the date was October 19th. October 18th had vanished. Her husband laughed it off, said maybe the calendar was wrong. But then their son, Michael, came downstairs holding a crumpled drawing he didn't remember making. It showed their house, except it was dark, cracked, windows boarded up, and in one of the upstairs windows was a figure, a tall shadow with no face. The drawing was dated October 18th. Mrs. Nichols started asking around. The mailman said he remembered driving past their house that day but didn't see any lights on. The neighbors said the place looked abandoned, like no one had lived there for years. But the Nichols were inside the whole time. Or so they thought. They checked their phones, no photos, no call history, nothing recorded between the 17th and the 19th. It was like time had folded. Then it happened again. A few weeks later, same thing, gone for a full day. Except this time, they remembered something. Dreams. Vague, foggy nightmares. Their daughter, Lila, said she heard footsteps outside her room all night. Heavy, slow, like boots dragging. She said she saw someone standing at the foot of her bed, watching, and whispered one word before vanishing. Return. Terrified, the Nichols set up cameras. The third time it happened, they captured something. The footage showed the house during the missing day. Lights flickering, doors slamming. At 2:33 a.m., a figure appeared in the hallway. 7 feet tall, black coat, no face, hands hanging too long. It moved room to room, never opening doors, just appearing inside. And in every room, the clock stopped. 00000. They fled the house that night. But every October, no matter where they live now, they lose a day. Phones glitch, their bodies feel heavy, and in their dreams, that figure returns. Closer every year. Story 4, The Man in the Drive-Thru Speaker. Denton, Nebraska. Population 236. I worked the closing shift at Burger Barn, the only fast food joint in our tiny town. It sat just off Route 77, a lonely little shack surrounded by cornfields and darkness. We closed at 11 p.m., but I always stayed a bit later to clean up. On weekdays, drive-through traffic died by 10. Sometimes I'd sit behind the register and stare at the empty headset light, praying no one would roll through last minute. Then came the night I heard him. It was 10:43 p.m. A car pulled into the drive-thru. I heard the tires crunch gravel. The sensor beeped. I put on my headset and said, "Welcome to Burger Barn. Go ahead with your order." Nothing, just static. Then, a voice. But not like anything I'd ever heard. Low, garbled, like it was underwater. "Can I see the manager?" I leaned closer to the speaker. "Sorry? What was that?" "He's not finished yet." I froze. "Sir, are you placing an order?" "He's not finished yet." And then, laughter, dry, raspy, right in my ear. I ripped the headset off. When I looked out the window, there was no car. But the speaker was still active. I could hear breathing. I told my coworker Taylor to check the lot. He stepped outside and said, "There's nothing here." No car, no tire tracks, nothing. I chalked it up to prank calls or headset interference, but it kept happening. Every week, around 10:40 p.m., a car would trigger the sensor. The speaker would crackle, and the same voice would whisper strange things. "Don't let him in. He's already inside. You shouldn't have opened tonight." Sometimes it would mimic my own voice. Other times, it would just breathe. I started keeping a log. I recorded the headset audio. When I played it back for Taylor, his face went pale. "Dude, that's my dad." "What?" "My dad died 3 years ago. That's his voice. He ran out of the restaurant and never came back. I sent the audio to a sound engineer online. He messaged me back the next day with a single line. "This isn't synthetic distortion. This is layered frequencies, like something is speaking over itself." One night, I waited. 10:40 p.m. I turned off the lights, kept the headset on. The beep came. I didn't speak. Then, the voice again. "You can see me now." I looked out the drive-thru window. Nothing. I turned to check the monitors. All screens were black. Then one flickered on. It was camera 3, the back freezer. And there he was. A man, pale face. No eyes, wearing a Burger Barn uniform from the 1980s, smiling. He raised his hand and pointed toward the office. Then the screen went black again. I ran to the office. On the desk was an old Polaroid, not mine, not Taylor's. It showed the drive-thru in black and white, and in the photo, the same faceless man, standing at the speaker, grinning. Story 5, The Silent Choir of Gable Hollow. Gable Hollow, West Virginia. Population, 812. There's a part of Gable Hollow locals avoid, an abandoned church on the outskirts of town, St. Matthias Chapel, built in 1872, closed in the early 90s. Nobody talks about why it shut down. The windows are shattered, the steeple leans, and the wooden cross out front has snapped in half. But everyone agrees on one thing: you don't go near it after dark. I didn't believe in ghost stories until the night I followed the sound. I was driving home from a friend's house when I took the wrong turn. Ended up on Chapel Road. I knew the stories about strange lights and singing coming from the church at night, but I never believed them until I heard it. A hymn, software melodic, like a choir singing in perfect harmony. At 1:12 a.m., I stopped my car and listened. It was coming from inside the abandoned church. No lights, no cars, just music. It was beautiful, angelic, but something felt off. It didn't sound like voices, not real ones. It was too perfect, too synchronized. Like someone pressing a single key and triggering 20 voices at once. I should have left. Instead, I grabbed my flashlight and went in. The front doors creaked open with a long, hollow groan. Inside, dust, broken pews, cobwebs. And at the front, the choir section, empty. But the music kept playing. There was no sound system, no instruments, nothing electronic. Just singing. Then I saw them. Shadows, 10 of them, seated in the choir pews, perfectly still. Outlines of people, but featureless. And as I watched, they all turned their heads toward me at once. The music stopped. Silence. Then they stood. I ran. I didn't look back until I reached my car, but I saw it in my rearview mirror. One of the shadows standing at the church entrance, watching. I told my grandfather the next day. He's lived in Gable Hollow his whole life. He didn't laugh. Instead, he walked to the back of his house and pulled out an old newspaper clipping. It was dated 1971. The headline read, 10 dead in Gable Hollow church collapse. Choir crushed during evening mass. He pointed to the photo. It showed the old St. Matthias choir. 10 members. Same number I saw. Same arrangement. Same pews. The cause? Structural failure, they said. But locals whispered it was something else. That the choir had been practicing a forbidden hymn. A composition not found in any hymnal. One passed down in whispers. Said to open the door to the other side. No one knows who wrote it. But the church never reopened after that night. And the hymn? Some say it still echoes if you drive past the church at exactly 1:12 a.m. If you hear it, don't stop, don't follow it, and whatever you do, don't listen too long. Because if you do, you'll start to hum along. Story 6, The Wrong Floor. White Creek, Oregon, population 1,942. When I took the job as a night janitor at the old Burnside Medical Tower, I thought it would be easy money. The building had been partially abandoned for years. The first 3 floors were used for storage, and the rest were sealed off. Rumor was they used to house psychiatric patients before regulations shut it down. But I didn't care about rumors. I needed the paycheck. The elevator was old, rusty, and creaked with every movement. I was told never to go past floor 3. Just clean the lobbies and mop the stairwell. Don't get curious, my supervisor warned. I didn't ask why, until one night, curiosity got the better of me. The elevator buttons only went up to 3. But as I cleaned, I noticed a flickering panel inside the control box. Behind it, a faint number, 4. It wasn't a button, it was a sensor. When I held my access card to it, the elevator began to rise. I didn't press anything, it just moved. When the doors opened, I expected another dusty hallway. Instead, it was pristine. Bright lights, shiny floors, no dust, no smell. Everything looked new, like it had just been built. I stepped out, stunned. That's when I noticed it was dead silent. No buzzing lights, no hum of electricity, just pure, suffocating stillness. I walked past rooms labeled with numbers, 401, 402, all the way to 409. They were hospital rooms, the kind you'd see in high-end private facilities, everything spotless. But the beds were all occupied, people lying completely still, 4 bags full. Monitors turned off, not asleep, not dead, just still, frozen, like statues. And all of them had the same look on their faces, mouths wide open, eyes bulging, like they'd died in terror and been frozen in that final scream. I backed away and turned to run for the elevator, but it was gone. No doors, just a wall. The hallway lights began to dim. Then I heard it, a soft dragging sound, like someone pulling something heavy across tile. I turned. Room 409 was open. A figure stood in the doorway, tall, thin, head tilted unnaturally, wearing an old patient gown soaked with something dark. Its mouth was sewn shut, but it was still trying to scream. It began to move toward me. Fast, I ran. There was no staircase, no exit, just hallway after hallway. I banged on the walls, screaming until I blacked out. When I woke up, I was in the lobby on the first floor. My supervisor stood over me, pale as a sheet. "You went to the 4th floor, didn't you?" I nodded. He handed me an old photo, black and white, from 1958. Burnside Medical Tower, psychiatric wing opening day. And in the back row, I saw it. That same figure, same gown, same tilted head. Burnside Tower was shut down in 1964 after 10 patients went missing from the psych floor. The official report said the wing was sealed for safety. But every few years, someone disappears inside. Always at night. Always alone. If you ever find a hidden button in an old elevator, don't press it. Some floors were shut for a reason.